Have you ever had that moment when you just know you're not alone? When the air changes, thickens, and every hair on your body rises for no reason? That night, I wasn't expecting anything unusual. Just me, my old fan, and the kind of heavy silence that usually lulls you into sleep. But then, the fan turned off. Not because of a power cut. Not because I hit the switch. No, it just stopped. The blades slowed. Squeaked once. And the room fell into a silence so thick it felt like the air itself was holding its breath. I froze, staring at it, waiting, hoping it would come back on, but it didn't. And then this thought hit me, so sudden it made my stomach drop. What if something else turned it off? Tell me, be honest. Would you ignore it and go back to sleep? Or would you get up and turn it back on just to prove to yourself nothing's wrong? Let me take you back to how it all began. It was a regular night, hot, muggy. One of those nights where you need the fan or you'll never fall asleep. My room wasn't anything special. A bed shoved in the corner, an old wooden wardrobe, and that fan. That old rattling fan I'd had for years. I always trusted it. It kept me cool, kept me sane. But that night, it became something else, something I'll never forget. I set my phone on the bedside table, its glow lighting up the walls for just a second before fading back into darkness. The only sound left was the soft whir of the fan blades cutting through the thick night air. Whir, whir, whir. Steady, rhythmic, comforting, until it wasn't. It happened the first time at exactly 12:47 a.m. I know, because I'd just checked my phone wondering why I couldn't sleep. One blink. The blade slowed. 2 blinks. They stopped completely. I sat up immediately. My first thought? Power outage. But no, my phone was still charging. The little red light glowed steady. The electricity was fine. So why did my fan stop? Would you brush it off, blame it on age, or would you feel that same creeping chill I felt? The one crawling up the back of your neck? Like someone had just touched you in the dark? I leaned over, pressed the button. The fan groaned, sputtered, then came back to life, relief, but only for about 3 minutes, and then it stopped again. This time, I didn't move right away. I just sat there, listening. The silence was heavy, oppressive. You don't realize how much comfort background noise gives you until it's ripped away. In that silence, the room felt alive, like it was breathing with me. Watching me. I reached out again, my fingers trembling. Click. The fan came back to life, but the relief didn't last. Because when I turned my head toward the wardrobe in the corner, I swear, something moved. A shadow, subtle but shifting, and I wasn't moving. My stomach dropped. My throat tightened. I whispered to myself, it's nothing. Just my imagination, but I didn't believe that. Not for a second. Would you have turned the lights on right then? Or stayed in the dark, too scared to see what was really there? I lay back down, pulling the sheet up to my chest, staring at the ceiling, forcing myself to breathe in rhythm with the fan. The blade spun steadily again. But the shadow, the feeling of it watching me, didn't fade, and just as my eyelids began to grow heavy, click, the fan stopped for the 3rd time. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just listened, and in the suffocating silence that followed, I heard it, a whisper, not loud, not clear, just a faint breath. But it was right next to my ear. That's when I realized this wasn't about the fan at all. Something else was in the room with me. I couldn't stop thinking about what had just happened with the fan. At first, I tried to convince myself it was just a short circuit, a random power glitch. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. Because here's the thing. Everything else in my room was working perfectly. My lamp was still glowing, my phone was charging, and the little digital clock by my bed hadn't even flickered. Only the fan had been touched, and when I say touched, I mean it felt personal, like someone, or something, had deliberately reached over and switched it off. That night, I decided to test it. I lay in bed, eyes wide open, staring at the spinning blades. I whispered out loud just to break the silence. Go on then. If you're real, do it again. I don't know what I was expecting, maybe nothing at all. But when the fan clicked off instantly, without even slowing down like a normal fan would, I felt my stomach drop. Let me ask you, if you were lying in bed and something invisible responded to your challenge like that, what would you do? Would you run? Or would you stay and try to prove you weren't imagining it? I tried to play it cool, okay? Maybe that was coincidence. I forced myself to reach over, switch it back on, and lie down again. My heart was thumping so loudly I thought it might wake the neighbors, but then it got worse. This time, the fan stayed on. But I began to hear something else. At first, it sounded like static, like the faint buzz you hear when a TV is left on with no channel. I sat up listening. The sound wasn't coming from the wall. It wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from the fan itself. The blade spun faster, humming loudly, and beneath that mechanical whirring, I could make out something. Terrifying. Whispers. Not the kind of whispers you hear when your siblings prank you, or when someone's outside your window. No, this was a voice layered deep in the air, carried on every spin of the blade. I leaned closer, straining to hear. It was saying my name. The sound stopped the second I pulled back. Silence filled the room again, as if nothing had happened. Now, I know some of you watching might think I was just overtired or hearing things because I wanted to hear them. But the thing is, I recorded it. Yes. I had my phone recording the whole time, and when I played it back, right at the moment when I leaned in close, the recording picked up a faint voice. It wasn't loud. It wasn't clear, but it was definitely there. It whispered, "I'm here. Be honest with me." If you heard that in your own recording, would you keep listening? Or would you delete it instantly and pretend it never happened? By now, sleep was impossible. I switched the fan off completely, hoping that would solve everything. But as soon as I did, the room turned unnaturally cold. And that's when I realized something. The fan wasn't cooling me down at all. It had been masking the real temperature of the room. Without it, the air felt sharp, icy, almost like a freezer. My breath misted in front of me and goosebumps crawled up my skin. I wrapped myself in a blanket, but it didn't help. Because when I turned toward the corner of the room, I saw it. A shape, standing completely still. It wasn't human. Not exactly. It was darker than the shadows, as if the darkness itself had condensed into a figure, its head tilted slightly as though it was studying me, waiting for me to speak, and then, just as suddenly, it vanished. No noise. No flicker. No warning, just gone. Would you still stay in that room after seeing that? Or would you pack your things and never look back? That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about a faulty fan. This was something else. Something intelligent. Something that I wanted to know was there, and I wasn't going to be able to ignore it any longer. I couldn't sleep after what I saw that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured that shape in the corner of my room, the shadow that shouldn't have been there. By morning, I'd convinced myself to investigate. I wasn't going to let fear control me, not in my own home. So I started with the obvious question, why the fan? At first, it sounded ridiculous. Ghosts aren't supposed to care about appliances. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized the fan was the only thing in my room that had been here before I moved in. Everything else, the bed, the desk, even the curtains, was mine. But the fan? That came with the apartment. It was an old, heavy thing. Metal base, thick blades. Not like the cheap plastic ones you buy at the store today. I'd actually liked it at first. It felt sturdy, reliable, a little vintage, but now it felt like a clue. So I did some digging. I called my landlord and asked where the fan came from. He sounded distracted at first, then he hesitated. "Oh, that thing?" he said. "It's been here a while. Probably belonged to the last tenant." "Who was the last tenant?" I asked. Silence. "That's not important," he said finally. "Why are you asking about the fan?" That answer only made me more curious. So I went to the local library and started looking up the address of my apartment. Old property records, newspaper clippings, anything. And that's when I found it. 5 years ago, a man died in this apartment. He was a night shift worker, lived alone. Neighbors said he was quiet, kept to himself. But when the heat wave hit that summer, something went wrong. He was found one morning slumped over in his chair with the fan still running beside him. They ruled it a heart attack. But some neighbors whispered it was something else, that he'd been terrified of the dark, that he'd begged his landlord for a new place but couldn't break his lease. He died here, alone, with the fan spinning. Would you keep living in an apartment after learning someone died there? Or would you move out immediately? I stared at the old newspaper clipping. The photograph of the man wasn't clear, but I could make out his eyes, sunken, tired, like someone who'd been awake for days. And then something struck me. The date of his death. It was the same night I'd moved in, exactly 5 years earlier. Suddenly, the fan in my room didn't feel like an appliance anymore. It felt like a relic, a witness, maybe even a channel. That's when I decided to test a theory. That night, I sat on my bed, turned the fan on high, and spoke into the spinning blades. "If you're here," I whispered, "tell me who you are." For a long moment there was nothing, just the hum of the blades, and then, in a faint, rasping voice carried on the air, "I never left." What would you do if an object in your home actually answered you? Would you burn it? Throw it out? Or keep asking questions? My blood ran cold. This wasn't my imagination. This wasn't a trick of sound. Something had just spoken back, and it wasn't just here. It was listening. That's when I realized this ghost wasn't random. It wasn't just haunting me. It was tied to the fan, and I had just opened a door I might not be able to close. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every sound in the apartment felt wrong. The fridge hum sounded like breathing. The creak of the ceiling fan above me echoed like footsteps pacing the floor. And every few minutes I heard that faint click, the switch of my standing fan flipping on and off. On its own, it was like it was toying with me. Around 2:37 a.m., I decided to record again. Only this time, I set my phone up to capture video, not just audio. I wanted proof. Proof that I wasn't losing my mind, so I hit record, placed the phone on my desk, and turned off all the lights except my bedside lamp. The fan stood still across the room, completely silent. For 5 full minutes, nothing happened. Then out of nowhere, a click. The fan came to life. The blade started spinning faster and faster. But here's the thing. I hadn't even plugged it in. I swear to you, the plug was still on the floor beside it. And then the fan began to move. At first it turned slightly, like it was adjusting direction. Then it began to rotate fully, the base scraping against the wooden floor, inching toward me, one slow, dragging sound at a time. Screech! 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 That sound still echoes in my head. I froze, staring. The fan stopped a few feet from my bed, blades whirring wildly now, faster than they should have been able to. And in between the spinning blades, I saw something, a face, just for a second. A pale, flickering outline of a man's face, reflected in the metal surface, staring right at me. If you saw a face staring back at you from inside an object, even for a split second, what would you do? Smash it or run? I lunged for the power cord, grabbed it, and yanked it clean out of the wall. The moment the plug hit the floor, the fan stopped. Silence. For a second, I thought it was over. But then I realized something, that my phone had stopped recording. It had frozen. Completely dead battery, despite being at 80% just moments before. I looked at the screen, and before it shut off completely, I swear I saw a final frame. A still image of that face. Clearer this time. And something written in faint static text at the bottom. Turn it back on. That's when I realized this spirit wasn't just haunting the fan. It was the fan, or maybe trapped inside it. I didn't know what to do. Every instinct told me to throw it away, but part of me needed answers. Needed to know why me, so I started talking to it again. "Who are you?" I asked. "What do you want?" No response. Just the faint tick of the fan's motor, like it was struggling to start again. And then a whisper. Loud this time, almost screaming through the air. "You took my place. What would you do if a ghost told you that you took its place? Would you pray, move out, try to talk to it?" My blood ran cold. Took its place? What did that mean? I grabbed the old property records again, the man's obituary. That's when I noticed something I hadn't before. His name. It was the same as mine, same first name. Same initials, coincidence? Maybe. But in that moment, it didn't feel like one. The fan turned on by itself again. Full speed, blades blurring, paper flying off my desk. The air in the room turned heavy, electric. My lamp began flickering wildly, and then the fan stopped mid-spin. The blades froze, completely still. But the motor kept humming, and from the center, from the black empty hole of the fan's grill, a hand began to emerge, pale, shaking, like smoke solidifying into flesh. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. All I could do was stare as this ghostly hand reached out, stopped halfway, and then snapped back into the fan like it had been sucked into a void. The sound that followed was indescribable, like a scream made of static and wind. And then, silence again. When I woke up, it was morning. My phone was on the floor, screen cracked. The fan, perfectly still, like nothing had ever happened. Would you keep this fan after everything that happened? Or would you destroy it right now? That's when I made my decision. I was going to find a way to destroy it, or set it free, because whatever was inside that fan wasn't done with me yet, and somehow I knew. The next time it showed itself, I might not survive it. I spent the next day trying to convince myself I'd imagined it all, the moving fan, the voice, the hand. But deep down, I knew I hadn't. The air in my apartment felt heavier. The walls seemed to absorb sound instead of reflecting it. And the fan, even though it was off, watched me. I know how crazy that sounds, but I swear every time I passed it, I felt its presence shift, like it was following me silently, blade by blade. That night, I decided to end it. I unplugged the fan, grabbed my jacket, and drove out of town. There was a small, abandoned junkyard about 20 minutes away, the kind of place where no one asks questions. I tossed the fan into the back seat, glancing in the mirror every few seconds. No sound, no movement. But the deeper I drove, the colder it got, even with the heater blasting full. My breath fogged the inside of the windshield. I should have turned back right then. When I reached the junkyard, the night was eerily quiet. No crickets, no wind, just stillness. I dragged the fan out of the trunk and set it on the dirt. "Whatever you are," I whispered, "you're not welcome here." And I swung the sledgehammer. The metal cracked with a single hit. The blades bent, the grill split open, and then it happened. The light from my car headlights flickered, and I saw it. That same pale face, staring at me from the shards of metal. But this time, it was smiling. The ground began to vibrate. The fan pieces rattled, twitching on their own, and the air filled with static, like 1,000 voices whispering all at once. "You shouldn't have taken my place. You shouldn't have moved in. You shouldn't have—" I covered my ears, but the sound was inside my head. I dropped to my knees as the temperature plummeted. The pieces of the fan began to reassemble themselves. Screws twisted back into place. The blade straightened. It was like watching time rewind, like the fan was healing itself. And when it stood whole again, it started to spin on its own. What would you do right now if the thing you just destroyed started rebuilding itself? Be honest, run, pray, or freeze. I took a step back, ready to run, but something stopped me. The air felt thick, heavy, like invisible hands were pressing against my chest. I could hear his voice again, clear this time. "You were supposed to die here." "Not me!" I gasped for air. My vision blurred. The spinning fan created a vortex, dirt swirling into the air like a miniature storm. And through the whirling dust, I saw him, the ghost, fully formed now. A man, gray and translucent, with hollow eyes and lips twisted into an expression of rage and sorrow. He reached out, his hand stretching toward me, and suddenly I couldn't move. It felt like every muscle in my body was locked in place. The voice echoed inside my head, louder now. "Give it back." Give what back? I screamed. He pointed toward my chest. That's when I realized he didn't just think I took his place. He thought I stole his life. The world around me began to warp. Junkyard lights flashing, metal clanging on its own, a windstorm forming out of nowhere. The fan spun faster than ever, glowing faintly white now like it was alive. I stumbled backward, grabbed a gas can from the ground, and poured it over the fan. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold the lighter. I whispered, "I'm sorry," and dropped it. The explosion wasn't big, just a burst of flame and heat. The fan screamed, not metal bending, not fire hissing, an actual scream, and then it went silent. When I opened my eyes, everything was gone. No flame. No ghost, no wind. Just ash! I stumbled back to my car, heart pounding. The seat was ice cold when I sat down, and on the passenger seat sat the fan's metal switch, perfectly intact, clean, like it had been waiting for me. Would you pick that switch up, or leave it there and drive away forever? I didn't touch it. I just drove. I don't even remember how I got home that night, but when I walked back into my apartment, there it was, the fan, standing right where it had always been, not burnt, not broken, humming softly. That was the moment I realized something terrifying. You can't destroy what's already part of you. The fan wasn't just haunted, it was bound to me. Maybe it always had been. For days after that night, I tried to ignore the fan. I stopped turning it on. I covered it with a sheet. I even tried sleeping in the living room. But every night I'd hear it click, on, all by itself. And when I'd walk into the bedroom, the sheet would be gone. The fan would be spinning again, only this time. It didn't blow cold air. It blew warm. Breathe warm, like something alive was breathing through it. I tried to move out. I packed my things, loaded the car, but when I started the engine, nothing. Battery dead. My phone, dead. Everything electronic around me stopped working except that fan. It was still running, even without power. Its blades turned slowly, rhythmically, like the beating of a heart. I realized it wasn't letting me leave, so I did the only thing I could think of. I sat in front of it, and I started talking. "I don't know what you want from me," I said, "but if it's peace, you can have it. Just let me go." For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then the fan stopped completely. The silence was so deep I could hear my own pulse, and then I heard his voice again, faint, distant, like it was echoing from another room. "You never turned me off." I froze. Slowly, I turned the fan toward me, and there, carved faintly into the back of the metal base, was a date. The same date he died, and underneath it, 2 words scratched in jagged handwriting, "Keep me cool." If you found those words carved into something haunted in your home, what would you do next? Be honest, would you leave it alone or would curiosity win? That's when everything went dark. The power in the entire building shut off, not just my room, not just my floor. Everything. I grabbed a flashlight, but the beam flickered and died. Then the fan started again, no power, no plug, just spinning in total darkness. Each turn of the blade made a soft whispering sound, almost like a word being formed. I leaned closer, heart pounding, trying to make out what it was saying. And then it spoke. "Your turn." The fan stopped, and before I could even react, click. Every light in the apartment turned back on at once, blindingly bright. I stumbled backwards, shielding my eyes. When I looked again, the fan was gone. Just gone. For a moment, I thought it was over, until I heard the sound. A faint, mechanical hum, coming from behind me. I turned around slowly, and my computer fan was spinning, fast, faster than it should, and as I watched, the words appeared on my computer screen, white text, typing on its own. "I told you. I never left. I don't know if he's attached to me, or if he's in the machines now. All I know is, every time I hear a fan click in the middle of the night, I remember that voice, and I wonder, what if he's watching through yours too? Before this ends, there's one more thing you need to know. Every time I've told this story, every time I've shared it out loud, the thing comes back stronger, and now that you've heard it, it knows you exist too. But there's a way to confuse it, a way to throw it off your trail. You have to break the pattern, right now. So do this with me. Hit the like button. Smash it. That click sends a signal, a distraction, a break in its hunt. And then, subscribe, because the next time it comes for me, you'll need to know what happens. You'll need to know how to protect yourself. If you don't, well, Let's just say you might hear your own fan switch off tonight, and if that happens, don't look up.